Hi everybody, welcome to a very special episode of Get Bakin with App TV. Today I'm here with Carla Ramsdell, a faculty member here at App State, as well as Hannah Armstrong, App State's REI chair. Today we'll be making pumpkin soup for you guys, taking a look at sustainability.
Welcome to the SPICE Lab. SPICE stands for Sustainable Physics-Inspired Culinary Education. And the idea for this lab happened many years ago. And it's just super exciting to finally be in here and be cooking. I can't think of a better co-chef for my first episode here than Hannah. So Hannah and I go back about 2 years when we met in this space when it was still a microscopy lab, trying to envision what this might look like converting over to a place where we can teach about the sustainability of cooking through a lens of science. So yeah, at that point, remind me, what was your role in REI?
About 2 years ago, I was part of our Outreach and Public Relations Subcommittee. So we helped fund the construction of this lab. And actually, all students at App State helped fund that because as an organization, we receive $5 in funding from every student's tuition. So that funding actually came directly from all the students here.
Thank you all. Yeah, so we're really excited. I think this space is kind of a way to infuse some joy into climate solutions because climate change and the science behind it can be a little dark and heavy. And so there's incredible opportunity that exists in our kitchen as climate mitigation strategies. And so this space is about delicious food first and foremost, but also talking about how we can choose ingredients and cooking methods that are more sustainable. So we're gonna start today by making some really simple pumpkin soup, starting obviously from some local pumpkins. This again, rather than sort of buying a can of soup, again, never about shaming. I've made stuff with canned stuff before, but the less we do this prepackaged, the more we can sort of cut down on our use of packaging, which is really exciting. Also, rather than buying like plastic pumpkins for decorations, the real thing's great, but then rather than just chunk them in the garbage or compost, we're gonna sort of do something with it. So think about all those other beautiful gourds you might be decorating with when this season's over and we start decorating for winter. These are some great ideas that you can do with those to make use of them. Before we start cooking, I want to go through really quickly one of the most unique things about this lab that I'm really excited about, and that's that every outlet and every cooktop and the refrigerator and the oven are all data logging energy use. And so you'll be able to see sort of a live capture of how much energy each of the components that we use here are, which I think is, I don't know that that's done anywhere else, so that's super exciting. So Hannah's gonna be cooking the caramelized onions on the induction cooktop, and we're gonna be using a pressure cooker for most of the meal. So I think I'm just gonna let you go ahead and start with the caramelization of the onions. You chop, I'll get the skillet warmed up if that sounds good.
Cool.
Cool. Hannah, you're forgetting a very important component because you told me that when you cut onions, you wear goggles.
Yeah.
And I was super excited about having someone in my lab wearing goggles while I should have goggles in solidarity. Sorry, I don't, so it's all you.
Before I cut onions, I have to wear safety goggles to prevent my eyes from watering too much.
Safety first, people.
Safety first. This is a lab.
It is a lab. I like to think of this as a science lab disguised as a kitchen. So it's a space where people can come in and explore. We've already had some students in here doing some research on things they're just curious about in the kitchen. So if you are interested, reach out to me. I'd love to just have students in here. It's a really approachable space. It makes the physics really digestible. I know. Cool. While she's doing that, I think I'm going to go ahead and chop the pumpkin too. Are you good with that? We have the burner on. I'm going to go ahead and maybe start melting the butter before I do this. Okay. So I'm going to keep sort of interjecting some fun tips. So definitely I use regular butter sometimes. We're going to use a plant-based butter on this because anything we move away from the dairy industry where we reduce the energy, the land it took to grow the animals, the water consumption and everything else. Actually, these plant-based butters are quite delicious, and especially in this kind of a recipe where it gets mixed in with so many other things you really would never notice. So we're going to start out with about a tablespoon of butter, and also I'm going to add about a tablespoon of olive oil. That olive oil and butter mixture is really quite magical. All right, I'm cooking on an induction cooktop. Obviously, we can't explain all the bits and pieces, but nothing in this lab has combustion, and that was really important to me also because we need to move away from combustion and the associated greenhouse gases as much as possible. And a kitchen's a great way to do that because everything here can just get plugged in. We talk about transportation. It's a little more challenging to think about moving away from combustion. We're doing it, obviously, but it's harder because you can't stay plugged in when you're a vehicle. But everything in our kitchens should really be transitioning to electric. And then as the grid is transformed to more renewable sources, our kitchens can just kind of ride that curve into a renewable future, which is super exciting.
So we're actually using wooden and glass cutting boards today instead of plastic, not only to reduce plastic waste, but also to reduce the effects of microplastics from ingestion and inhalation.
Yeah, so the sustainability of a kitchen is not just about the food you cook and how you cook it, but it's all about the other stuff you bring into the kitchen. So even, our spoons, we're gonna be using wooden spoons, which is a great option, or stainless steel, something that will last for generations. A lot of the kitchen stuff that we get that's plastics tends to, have a lot of harmful possible side effects. So glass cutting boards are tricky because they dull knives really well, so really a wooden cutting board is the best option. All right, I'm gonna get into the pumpkin now. So again, kitchens are lovely places. They're mentally grounding. They're so important, but also they can be dangerous. So when cutting something like a pumpkin, we wanna make sure we're being really careful. And just take your time, don't force anything. I'm gonna try to get us to a place where we have a fairly flat surface, but these big round objects can kind of get away from you really quickly, and so you wanna make sure you're being really careful with that. All right, so now that we took the top off, and note that all of our waste products is gonna go into our compost bin. Thankfully, Appalachian State University has a really robust composting program, so this will all go into that and make really rich soil for the future. So now I'm just going to cut this in half, again keeping my hand above the blade, taking my time. There we go, that's the hardest part. And so then you can see, yeah, we have this really beautiful innards. So those pumpkin seeds are magical. Actually, a pumpkin in general is a superfood, and the pumpkin seeds are part of that. So we want to make sure we preserve that for later. So I'm going to just put these innards in here. I find that it's easier, they're attached here and here, so if I just kind of run a knife here and run a knife there, I can scoop the innards out a lot easier.
So we're doing 3 cloves of garlic, and I'm doing that just by taking a clove and smashing it with the base of the knife, and then cutting it into smaller pieces, and then just adding it in with the caramelizing onions.
Yeah, so you removed the paper already?
Yes.
Cool, so a garlic's another great opportunity for limiting single-use packaging. You can buy garlic in packages pre-minced. It's literally such a different flavor when you cut it and then put it in oil usually and then refrigerate it and package it and transport it. Like, it's really lost its magic by that point. So I think a lot of them, it's so easy. Garlic's really easy to just have fresh. And the great news about garlic is it's grown in its own packaging. So this paper outer skin, there's you don't need to package it. So why do we take the skin off and then package it? I don't know the answer to that, but fresh garlic is just amazing. So a quick tip on garlic is if you don't like the stickiness and the residual smell, garlic presses are also magical. So you can stick them in a garlic press. Actually, just take the clove. You don't even need to remove the paper. Cut it in half, put it cut side down in a garlic press, and squeeze it out, and then your fingers are sort of saved of all the stickiness. Okay, so there's the pumpkin seeds and goop, and we will deal with that later. But now we have these. I'm gonna cook it with the skin. So a small pumpkin like this, you definitely can eat the skin. In fact, there's a ton of nutrient in the skin, and if we eat the skin, we're eliminating food waste, which is another big driver of climate change. So I'm just gonna cut this bottom off here, again, being real careful and slow. It's a little easier once I have a flat bottom like this. It doesn't tend to slip away from me. And again, I'm going to cook all of this in the Instant Pot, which, if you ask me, is the superhero of an energy efficient kitchen, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But we're just basically, all these things are going to mix together, and then we're going to use an immersion blender to blend it all together. So I can sort of stick to pretty big chunks here with the pumpkin because we're going to just use the blender to do the mixing later. One at a time, just for safety's sake. going to move over to the wooden board because this tends to be so loud.
The first time you chopped the pumpkin, I jumped so hard in the air.
Say it again?
The first time you chopped the pumpkin, I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, it's loud. That's one thing about the glass. Wood's much better. I need a large wooden cutting board.
Yeah.
So a pressure cooker is an incredibly efficient way to cook for several reasons. For one, it's an insulated system, which would make me ask, why don't we insulate all of our pots? We insulate our homes, we're adding heat to the system, we want the heat to stay in the system, so insulating it is genius. Additionally though, because it's a sealed system, it breaks through that limitation we usually have in water. Water usually doesn't get hotter than 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius in an open pot. But once we seal it, we sort of allow that steam that's escaping to build up pressure in the system, and that allows the water to get up to higher temperatures closer to 240 or 250 degrees Fahrenheit, and that makes things cook just a whole lot quicker, which is great and also energy efficient. So we're going to dump all our pumpkin in there. Again, that was about a 2-pound pie pumpkin. Not all pumpkins are cookable, so the jack-o'-lantern pumpkins you probably could, but they're not that great. So these smaller gourds are great, and definitely a pie pumpkin works really well. To this we're going to add 4 cups of liquid, and I'm going to do 2 cups of water and 2 cups of broth.
And we're also just going to add 1 carrot cut into smaller pieces.
No need to skin the carrot. There's also a lot of great nutrition in the carrot itself, and since everything's being blended, we can just keep that all there. So I'm going to put 2 cups of water. And then we want to add 2 cups of broth. You can buy broth pre-constituted like in a can, but again, a lot of packaging. I tend to like a concentrated broth called Better Than Bouillon. There's a lot of other versions also. So yeah, this 1 can comes in a glass jar and it makes 38 cups of bouillon. So there's a huge saving of packaging and even transportation weight to try to do bouillon in this way. This is a vegetable bouillon also. So I'm going to put the other 2 cups of water in here, and then 2 teaspoons of this, which will be the equivalent. 2 cups of water and 2 teaspoons of this is the equivalent of 2 cups of broth. Also, these have a lot of good umami. So umami is the 5th flavor that we only recently discovered, but it's a lot of what we get from our animals. So as we transition to a more plant-based food system for sustainability reasons, we have to be really conscious about making sure we're bringing in those complex, lovely umami flavors, and broth is a great way to do that. All right, Hannah's ready to add the caramelized onions.
Oh my god, this thing is heavy.
Yeah, that's the one thing about cast iron, is that it is a bit of a workout to get it.
Right.
Yeah, you got
And
it.
then we're just going to add the caramelized onions and the garlic from the cast iron into the pot.
I wish we could send smells because it smells so good in here. Nothing like that magical transformation that happens when you caramelize onions. Again, also because we're talking about transferring over to a more plant-based diet, we want to add some protein to this. So we're going to add some plant-based milk at the end, or half and half, but I'm also going to add some beans. And again, because we're in the pressure cooker and it gets to those high temperatures, we can add, these are navy beans, so they're pretty small, and they cook really fast. So I don't even really need to pre-soak them. Another good option for adding protein to this would be lentils. Lentils are another bean that cook really fast. So I'm just going to pour those right into the pot, and they'll cook while everything else is cooking. Here's some lentils, again, another really great example. Again, all this is getting blended. You're not even going to know the beans are in there, but they're going to be giving you protein and fiber, which is really important. All right, Hannah, what do we have left to do? How do you feel about grating some ginger?
Gotcha. Do I have to cut it first, or do I just grate
No,
it?
I think you can just leave the skin on again. It's all getting blended. We're gonna go for it. I'm gonna look at what's next though, so hold on just a moment.
Alright.
We got broth. We got navy beans. Okay, we just do the seasonings.
I'm going to grate about a tablespoon of ginger.
All right, now comes the seasonings. This is completely up to you and your flavors. I'm actually gonna start this pressure cooker now just so the water can start to come to a boil. Every one of these is a little bit different. You're gonna be able to see immediately on our energy monitor when this thing pops in, which is the fun part. I'm actually only going to set it for 5 minutes, and you're like, that's crazy. But it's because we're going to bring this whole system up to the boiling point and beyond to 240 degrees. It's an insulated system. So once we get about 5 minutes of active time, we're just going to let it do the rest of it passively, which is fairly magical also. So there we have it for 5 minutes. It's going to first bring all this up to a boil. Alrighty.
The ginger is gonna go in the pot.
Again, if you like ginger, great. If you don't like ginger, that's a part you can definitely just leave out. All of this is adaptable to your flavors. I'm gonna put a teaspoon of parsley, a teaspoon of rosemary, one of the best way to get herbs is in a place that has bins of herbs. So there's a couple places in Boone, Be Natural and Earth Fare are those, and you can literally buy like a tablespoon of herbs at a time. And so if you're trying a new recipe and not totally sure if you're gonna like it, it's a great way to not spend $7 on a whole bottle of a spice you may not like. Just buy a tablespoon for like 40 cents or something. I'm also gonna put in a little bit of thyme, about a half a teaspoon of thyme. This is ground thyme. You can also use the leaf version. And then I'm going to use a little bit of ground pepper. All right, Hannah, how are we doing here?
I think we're doing good. The half and half.
That's going to come after we cook. Yep.
Okay.
All right, I think we are done. I'm going to grab a cooking utensil. In fact, I'm just going to use the wooden spoon that we were already using and just give this all a good stirring. Introduce all these ingredients to each other before we seal up this system. All right, that looks amazing. I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on it and make sure I have, all of these have a little weighted piece that you can vent or not vent, and I don't want to vent it. I want it to be able to build up pressure in there so it can get it to those higher temperatures.
Also, I just wanted to take a couple seconds to talk about the App State Renewable Energy Initiative. We are a completely student-led and student-funded organization, and we do a lot of fun projects like this. Some of our other projects you might recognize around campus, such as the Broyhill wind turbine. We have a lot of solar arrays around campus. We install LEDs and do a lot of other fun stuff. So if you're interested in energy efficiency, come to one of our meetings. Look us up on Instagram, appstate_REI. It's super fun and lots of opportunities for leadership, development, career opportunities, conferences. It's really fun and I would highly recommend.
Yeah, as a faculty member, it's actually like the #1 organization I talk to my students about, because they're not only looking for physicists and students in sustainable technology, but truly anybody, right? They need marketing and outreach and communication, fundraising, and energy monitoring, anything. So it's a good model of what it looks like when you graduate, right? Because you're working on these transdisciplinary teams, and REI is a great way to start that.
Yeah, everyone is welcome to join. I myself am a biology major, so I'm just part of it because it's something that I'm passionate about. But yeah, it's fun. We have 3 subcommittees: outreach and public relations, project management, and data management. And so they are responsible for the smaller inner workings of the club, and they do a lot of really fun stuff.
While I'm in the weeds here, a bit in these seeds, I also want to do a shout out to people that have made this space possible. This literally was a microscopy lab at one point, and I want to just shout out to my department that's been incredibly supportive of this work I've done and gave this space to me, the Department of Physics and Astronomy here at Appalachian State University. I also want to shout out to the Office of Sustainability, who's been a tireless supporter of the work I've done in here also, so huge thank you there. This space also is becoming this really vibrant collaboration among a lot of different entities on campus. And so the design of the space was led by Jeannie Mercer-Ballard in interior design, who helped a student to have this as their senior project. And also Lisa Stinson, who's faculty in the art department, mentored a student that carved and made those tiles by hand, which are gorgeous. They're the showcase sort of highlight of the whole space. So, you know, I'm working with someone now to come up with a logo for the Spice Lab. That's also a student. And so there's a lot of student involvement that's come into the creation of this lab. And at the very top of that thank you list is the REI again, Hannah and I met 2 years ago, and without them, this space wouldn't be here. So I think Hannah saw the outreach opportunity, which I think we're doing right this moment, which is super exciting that the two of us are in here, really the one that helped me get this lab grant done. And so, yeah, really appreciative for their support throughout. Also, the facilities department, the carpentry shop and everything, like made the cabinetry and was involved in transforming the space. And so the electricians and the plumbers and everybody was just a joy to work with. All right, so now what you want to do is just run these under some water to get some of that pumpkin pulp off of there. And then ideally you want to let them sit for a couple days, and that's just to let them just air dry. That means it's going to use less energy in the oven to dry them out. So these I did about 2 days ago, and so they've been able to dry, and these are the ones I'm actually going to roast. I'll roast these later when they have a little bit of time to rest. And so all we're going to do, super simple, is just put them on a baking sheet, a little bit of olive oil. You can either make them sweet or salty, so I'm going to do a little bit of garlic salt because I love garlic salt, and a little bit of olive oil, but you can just as easily do some brown sugar and cinnamon and nutmeg and make them a sweet snack. All right, so we're just going to spread these partially dried pumpkin seeds out, and I'm not going to seed them. Here's some pumpkin seeds, and this is the inside part of those, but you actually can eat the shell of a pumpkin seed also. So we might use those pumpkin seeds as a garnish on top of the soup, but this is more for a snack. So I'm just going to add a little bit of olive oil, maybe a lot of olive oil, and also some garlic salt. Okay, now we're going to just mix all this together. Sometimes your hands are the best mixer. And I want to just spread those out. Now, pumpkin seeds are a really great thing to do when your oven is already hot and you're turning it off, right? So there's a lot of energy in a hot oven, and usually we just turn it off and walk away from it. There's a lot of great things we can do to save energy, to use that energy that's already in the oven. Granola is one of my favorites. So when the oven's hot, you pop in a couple trays of granola, maybe leave it on for a couple minutes to let the tray heat up, and then just cut the oven off and leave it be for about a half an hour, and then it should be perfect. These are great also. I wouldn't normally turn on an oven just to do these little bit of pumpkin seeds. Normally I'd use an oven that I already had hot for another reason. I'd have these on the ready and then just stick them in, and as the oven's cooling down, they would cook passively. Yeah, so we see that the steam is starting to build up and sort of escape. And then instantly the pressure gauge recognizes that it's up to pressure, and so now the system is sealed. So now as that water continues to vaporize and expand, it starts pushing on all the surfaces, including the surface of the water. And this again drives up that boiling point of the water to a hotter temperature, so things will quickly cook. All right, the pumpkin seeds are going into the oven. So as we're waiting for this to cook and for the pumpkin seeds to cook, we can take a minute to really look at this data. This data really allows us to sort of differentiate what are the big users in our kitchen. And you see, as soon as I put the oven online, it kind of dwarfs everything else that's happening. Those little blips that happen consistently is the refrigerator. And so that's the starter motor getting that compressor started, and then it stays on long enough to get the refrigerator to the right temperature. Those look impressive until you start adding these other components in. And the thing about a refrigerator, though, is that it runs 24/7. And so actually in a kitchen, the refrigerator tends to be the thing in a typical week that uses the most amount of energy. It doesn't use the most amount of power, energy per time, but over the long haul, it's still using energy when we're sleeping, when we're on vacation. And so buying a really efficient refrigerator is a really important step to an energy efficient kitchen. And then we see the induction cooktop on when we were caramelizing the onions. Then we saw the Instant Pot come on, and then again when we turned on the oven, we sort of see that. So that's what's really amazing about this data gathering, is that we can really start to see each individual component. All right, so we're going to be using one of my favorite gadgets in the kitchen, an immersion blender. Do you own an immersion blender?
I do.
Do you like it?
I love it. For tomato sauce, any type of sauce, anything.
Yes, it's amazing. I actually say, like, get a quart wide mouth jar, because this and this become a blender. So even if you're in a dorm or something, this is a really easy thing to do. But then also the soup, I never have to like pull it out of there and put it in a blender and dirty something else. I can just blend right in there, which saves dishes, and we all like saving dishes, which is great. So I think that's cooked. It was 5 minutes active time and 15 minutes of sort of passive time. Again, it's still a sealed system, so it's still at least above that 240 degrees Fahrenheit. But I'm going to go ahead and vent it and call it done. Because those beans were so tiny, they're probably done. The pumpkin's definitely done by now, and we're just going to mix everything together and make this really delicious, smooth, and nutritious soup. This just allows that pressure to escape. Riley's right up there.
You can probably smell it down the hall.
It's gonna take a hot second.
I'm gonna make this recipe with my
Come in if
pumpkin.
you would like, so we're in the decompression zone. Hello. How are you? Good. Yeah, that's what I hear.
I would overdose
Just
Follow your
the
nose. Okay, we'll start recording again since this is getting low on the pressure.
Cool.
So we hear it's starting to get close to atmospheric conditions. So again, we're just letting all that extra pressure come out. These are really safe ways to pressure cook also. There's all kinds of backup safety systems. There's a thermometer in here, obviously, and so it'll cut off if it overheats, if something gets clogged and it can't vent properly. All right, well, the pressure cooker has released its pressure, so it's back to atmospheric pressure, and that allows me to take the lid off. One of the safety features is you can't take the lid off when it's pressurized, and so we're just gonna let that. Yeah, this is amazing. The inside was 240 degrees, and I can still touch the outside of this, so that insulation is really amazing and helps to make this a really energy efficient device. So again, I'm going to use an immersion blender, which is just a blender on the end of a stick. If ever you're messing with it, you want to make sure you take this off so that you don't accidentally have some kind of injury. And also, they can be the messiest things all in the kitchen. So you want to make sure you keep that submerged, because if you lift it out or tilt it, you're going to fly pumpkin soup all over the kitchen. So you were warned. All right, so here we go. All right, we're going to go ahead and serve this up and give it a little taste and see if it needs more salt. So the broth that I put in there, that concentrated broth, adds a lot of salt. So I don't typically add salt in addition until it's all done. But no, I always forget this. But we want to add a little bit of half and half now to sort of add a little bit of creaminess to this. So I have forgotten that in the past, but let's go ahead and add that. Again, I'm going to experiment with a half and half that's plant-based. This is a mixture of oat milk and coconut milk, so we'll see how that goes. So let's reconnect our immersion blender. And I'm going to put about a cup. All righty, it looks creamy and delicious. Now we're going to serve it up. I think I'm going to call that done. Let's go ahead and just. The great thing is also this part of it is dishwasher safe, so that makes cleanup really easy. Here we go. Again, thinking about transitioning to plant-based eating, we think about layering protein. So we added protein with the half and half, we added protein with the beans, and I'm also going to top it off with a little bit of pumpkin seeds because that adds a little bit more protein and a little bit of fiber. You good with pumpkin seeds?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
It's also pretty.
It's very pretty. I agree completely. A little bit of dab of yogurt on there actually is good also. Spoon.
Yay.
Cheers. It's very hot.
Cheers.
Cheers, my friend. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Fall has officially begun. It's yummy.
That's
Yes.
so good.
Yay! So I hope you will enjoy it. And stay tuned for more episodes.
Well, this looks delicious, and I cannot wait to try it. And you guys can try this at home. I say cheers.
Cheers! So much fun.
Oh, yeah. Stay tuned for more recipes here in the Spice Lab.
Yeah, we're really excited. So Hannah and I will be dueling pizzas. We're going to be making pizzas on a radiant and an induction cooktop. A pizza that never sees an oven, so already it's going to be really energy efficient. We're also going to make tacos using lentils. A really good way to introduce some plant protein. So excited to be doing more. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching Get Bakin with App TV in the Spice Lab, as well as App State REI. Until next time.
Happy fall!